Get down the ground now! Get down the ground now!
San Diego law enforcement leaders now have a plan for how and when body cam video will be released in officer-involved shootings. Details coming up. Millions of Americans suffer from mental health issues every year, but only about half have access to care. Lack of coverage and cost are factors, but they aren't the only things keeping people from getting the help they need.
Not many people in my school have lost their dads or moms.
A camp in Julian helps military kids cope with loss. Stay tuned. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. The day before the funeral of a San Diego officer, National Police leaders announced a protocol for when to release video involving officer-involved shootings. District Attorney Bonnie DeManis said body cameras and other video turned into police will not be made public until her office has completed a review. Then they will only release the sections her office sees are relevant to the investigation.
The immediate release of a video would be irresponsible. We have a duty to protect the due process rights of the defendants. The officers have rights as well to privacy. The witnesses have rights to privacy. So we have to protect and balance all those interests.
The officer's department will also be notified before the video is released. If charges are filed, the public will see only what comes out during the trial. The San Diego County Police Chiefs and Sheriff's Association brokered their agreement. San Diego becomes the first county in the country to have a single standard for when to release video in police shootings. California Governor Jerry Brown is planning to attend a memorial service for the San Diego gang enforcement officer killed during a shootout in Southcrest last week. The public service for Jonathan de Guzman is scheduled for Friday at 11 o'clock at Shadow Mountain Community Church in El Cajon. A funeral mass will be held tomorrow morning at Corpus Christi Catholic Church in Bonita. Police say de Guzman was shot 5 times at close range before dying at the hospital. He was a 16-year veteran of the department. San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer's name came up in federal court today in the trial of a Mexican billionaire. Jose Susumo Azano Matsura is accused of illegally channeling hundreds of thousands of dollars to San Diego candidates. KPBS investigative reporter Amita Sharma was at the courthouse and joins us on the phone.
Political consultant John Wainio testified that he felt pressure from District Attorney Bonnie DeManis' campaign organization to find a way to get a large sum of Azano's money into her 2012 mayoral bid. Wainio testified that Faulconer, a DeManis backer at the time, called him about where the money could be placed. Outside the courtroom, Wainio sought to clarify his testimony, saying the pressure he described on the stand did not come from Faulconer. A spokesman for Faulconer later said the mayor had no knowledge of, quote, this foreign money scheme. Wainio told federal jurors he was immediately suspicious when he was approached by an Azano employee about getting 6 figures into DeManis' mayoral campaign because of the sum and Azano's Mexican nationality. He testified that he asked DeManis on the phone if Azano had a green card. He said, quote, she gave me no determination one way or another, and then there was a long silence. The court did not allow Wainio to say how he interpreted DeManis' alleged silence, but Wainio said that conversation made him more resolute to stay away from Azano's money. From the federal court downtown, Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
2 initiatives to change San Diego's election rules are headed to the November ballot. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says on Tuesday, the City Council advanced the measure in a partisan vote.
Both of the measures aim to shift power from the city's June elections to the general elections in November. The first would require ballot initiatives to be voted on in November, never in June. The second would require November runoffs for all local candidates. Right now, the mayor or city council members can win outright in June if they get more than half the vote. Council President Sherry Leitner, a Democrat, says that means big decisions are made during elections with low voter turnout.
The simplest solution would be for all city candidate elections to be decided in November, as they are at the state and federal level. This will avoid confusion among voters and will maximize voter participation in city elections.
More voters do turn out in November than in June, and that higher turnout tends to favor Democrats. That's why Republicans on the council say these measures aren't about improving democracy, they're about helping Democrats win elections.
This particular thing in front of us today is poorly thought out, it was rushed, and it is a waste of taxpayer money.
These are just two of more than a dozen measures slated for the increasingly crowded November ballot. City staffers are already warning the money budgeted for the election is likely not enough. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Residents of Porter Ranch are urging California's governor to shut down Aliso Canyon for good. The facility has not operated since a 16-week gas leak began last October and was plugged in February. That was the largest gas blowout in U.S. history. Today, Porter Ranch residents gathered at the state capitol to protest Southern California's gas company's plan to reopen the facility.
The state needs to get off of natural gas and all fossil fuels towards 100% renewable energy. We know that, but it needs to happen much more quickly. We can't just say 2040, 2050. It needs to happen now. People are getting sick. We're having climate change is already here, and we need to reverse course much more quickly. And we need the governor to show real leadership.
Protesters met with the governor after the demonstration. Aliso Canyon officials plan to reopen later this summer. Supporters of a ballot measure that would limit the price the state pays for prescription drugs have a big hill to climb. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg says that's because Prop 61 opponents have already raised nearly $66 million to fight the measure.
Prop 61 would prevent state agencies from paying more than the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs pays for prescription drugs. The pharmaceutical giants Merck and Pfizer are among the biggest contributors to the opposition. And as of late June, opponents had out-fundraised supporters by nearly 10-to-1 margin. Even so, proponents aren't discouraged. They say a recent poll paid for by the Yes on Prop 61 campaign shows widespread support. Proponents argue the measure would lower drug prices and increase transparency. Critics maintain the initiative would reduce access to prescription drugs and create more red tape. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
San Diego County has announced the number of kindergartners entering classrooms without vaccinations was down last school year. And KPBS reporter Megan Burke says that rate is expected to continue to fall.
This year, parents can no longer have vaccine requirements waived because of their personal or religious beliefs. The new state law is the second passed after researchers linked a 2014 measles outbreak at Disneyland to low vaccination rates. The first law required parents claiming the exemption to consult a doctor. As a result, about 96% of kindergartners were vaccinated last year. The county's chief of immunizations says that small percentage without vaccinations remains a concern.
It's cumulative, of course. There's this group and then the group from the previous year and the group from the previous year. And each of these groups can contract and transmit infectious diseases.
Earlier this summer, a group of California parents, including one from San Diego, asked a judge for an injunction on the belief exemption ban. The case is pending. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Millions of Americans suffer from depression, anxiety, and other mental health issues every year. But more than half of them never get the help, even those who have insurance coverage. Some say they just can't afford it. Others say they can't get through all the red tape. Recent health laws were supposed to fix this, but KQED health reporter April Dombrowski says insurance companies are still finding ways to keep people who need care from getting it.
On a Sunday afternoon, Natalie Dunnage and her boyfriend, Russell Lifson, head to the park with Natalie's 13-year-old son, Straz.
Let's go.
You can't kick me from here.
He has autism, a developmental disorder that affects about 1 in 70 children in the U.S.
You have strengths on one side of your brain and weaknesses on your other side. Like, controlling your emotions or this and that, A strengths could be like coding or, focusing on one thing for hours.
Each week, an applied behavioral analysis, or ABA therapist, comes to the house.
Are you ready?
ABA therapy helps kids with autism learn life skills and how to control their temper.
Yeah.
Straz and his therapist, Gabby Raiders, create a schedule of carefully timed activities so he can get better at transitions.
This is the ID, right? The identification for the enemy. This is the width, height, speed X, and speed Y.
Ending a favorite activity can trigger a meltdown.
I can't do it. No, I can't.
Hey, sweetie.
If your kid doesn't get ABA therapy and they're having these really defiant and difficult behaviors, like these are the kids who end up in jail.
As a single mom working full-time, money is tight for Natalie. She can only afford a few hours of ABA therapy a week.
I want my son to be as successful as possible, so every time I get a raise, I just increase ABA hours.
She has insurance through Blue Shield, but getting mental health treatment has been really tough.
So I went on the site, and you can see it says like doctors, facilities, dentists. Nothing about where to find a therapist. I called them, and they emailed me a list of providers.
Oh, so this is the list.
Yeah, they all have a 3-month waiting list. And then after the 3-month waiting list, you have like 2 to 8 weeks of intake, and then hopefully you get approved.
So she pays $50 an hour out of her own pocket for her son's therapy. And now she faces similar hurdles finding a clinician for herself.
Blue Shield sent me a list, like, I should be fine, just make a few phone calls, I'll find somebody. I called everybody on this list. Only one place called me back.
I remember they would
I have to be as emotionally healthy as possible so that I can be there for Straz, because he has good weeks and he has bad weeks.
Turns out that Natalie's experience is by no means unique. I called 100 psychologists in San Francisco who take Natalie's insurance.
I'm wondering if you are indeed taking new patients with Blue Shield coverage?
Half said they're no longer taking insurance or new patients, and a quarter never even called back.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Only 8 had appointments outside of normal work hours. I contacted Blue Shield for an interview, but they declined. Instead, they sent a statement saying that the provider has to notify Blue Shield if they're no longer taking new patients. They also said California is facing a shortage of mental health providers.
Insurance companies are saying that there's a shortage of mental health providers. It's hard for me to believe. I have many colleagues who are trying to get onto panels, and they run into the problem again and again where panels say, sorry, we're closed, we have enough providers in your area.
Dr. Hotman is a psychologist who accepts a variety of insurance plans. She can get up to 20 calls a week from people asking for her help.
It makes me really angry. It really is upsetting, and it makes me wonder, what are the insurance panels doing, and why are they limiting how many therapists they take onto their panels?
Why do you think they might be limiting the number of therapists?
If you make things too difficult to access, then patients will stop trying to seek the therapy and the treatment that they need. And I guess part of me thinks that that's probably a good thing for the insurance companies.
Another difficulty patients face is outdated or missing information about a therapist's specialty.
So for instance, if I need a cardiologist for a heart problem and I just get a list of all MDs that are on my health insurance panel, I'm not going to know who to call about my particular issue that I'm needing help with.
Many therapists complain that reimbursement rates are too low.
Over the past 18 years of being on their panels, they have not increased their reimbursement rates. And yet the copays and premiums are increasing for most of my patients.
Under state and federal laws, insurance plans must cover mental health services equally compared to other forms of care. But millions of patients across the country, like Natalie Dunnage and her son Straz, still struggle to get the help they need.
I'm almost done with this. I like that.
Getting services through my plan, the hardest one by far is getting mental health services. There's nothing more difficult. I needed to find a doctor. I found one instantly. But mental health, behavioral health, psychiatrists, to have that be even harder. It's almost unbearable sometimes.
Good night.
The Summer Olympic Games begin Friday in Rio. UC San Diego Health is the medical care provider for Olympic athletes in the region. Doctors there are working up to the last minute to get Olympians ready to compete.
Before an athlete gets a shot at Olympic glory, there's practice, more practice, and sometimes injuries.
They're training all the time, sometimes 2 and 3 times a day. And a lot of injuries that you see are stress related, or injuries that are overuse injuries that can cause just chronic, pain and inability to do their normal activities.
Dr. Sonia Ahmed specializes in foot and ankle injuries at UC San Diego Health, the official U.S. Olympic Regional Medical Center.
This is what they train for, some of them for 4 years, and obviously short-term 4 years, but their whole life they've been training for. And the key for us is not only just offer the surgical services and the specialty services we give, but to understand when maybe surgery isn't the right thing for them.
UC San Diego Health also has sports trainers who offer preventative and recovery techniques to help patients, whether they're Olympians or weekend warriors.
Sergeant Hillary Boris is one of 4 runners of Kenyan descent who've taken a unique path to the Rio Games by enlisting in the U.S. Army. AP reporter Peter Banda says in the Army they earn American citizenship and training with the military's branch's world-class athlete program.
When Hillary Bohr joined the U.S. Army, the daily 2-mile run required for soldiers at Fort Carson was easy.
So I ran my 2-mile in 10 minutes, I think it was 10 minutes. For the soldiers, that's really fast.
Bohr came to the U.S. at age 17. He grew up in Kenya, where he loved to play sports, except for one.
For me, personally, I didn't like to run.
But it turns out he excelled at running, becoming an All-American at Iowa State. 10 years later, Bohr is representing his new home country in the steeplechase at the Summer Olympics.
To make the U.S. team, not even the U.S. team, but to represent the Army, it's just a great accomplishment.
Bohr is one of 4 American soldiers of Kenyan descent competing in Rio. They gained citizenship by joining the Army.
It's a pretty humbling moment to think that somebody would want to leave their country and come to yours, and they would do so to a degree in which they would die for something that they haven't even been a part of yet.
The soldiers trained to become Olympians through the world-class athlete program at Fort Carson, commanded by Matthew Hickey.
They're going to represent the United States at the Olympic Games, not just as athletes, but as soldier athletes, and that's about as American as you can get.
Some 3,000 Fort Carson soldiers are currently deployed in Afghanistan. Bohr, a financial management technician, had been scheduled to be deployed there, but his older brother Julius, who's in the same unit, went in his place, giving him the chance to chase his dreams.
It's a different feeling it's not only for my brother, it's just for every soldier that are deployed now.
Hoping to make his family and his country proud. Peter Banda, Associated Press, Fort Carson, Colorado.
The weather will remain sunny and dry this week here in San Diego. Heather Waldman has tonight's KPBS weather report.
Well, the monsoonal thunderstorms continue across the 4 corners. Meanwhile, the marine layer continues to sneak into the California coast each morning, lingers through late morning, and then by the afternoon, everybody enjoys the sunshine. Interior sections have been hot lately, but at least it's been more seasonable over the last couple of days. Here's the latest satellite and radar showing those storms north of Phoenix, well to the east of the California deserts, although we did have a couple of showers to start the day there. Haven't seen much, if any, rainfall over the last couple of weeks, and that'll be the trend for the next few days. Clouding up tonight along the coast and into the metro area. That's that marine layer coming back in. Temperatures will be in the upper 60s at their lowest. That's at the shore. Farther inland, looking at upper 50s in Ramona and Alpine. Borrego Springs will stay at 73. Mecca close to 80 degrees. Mount Laguna, meanwhile, drops to 54. That'll be one of our cool spots heading into Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon, more soaking storms into the 4 corners. Not expecting much to drift into Southern California. Cooler air moving into the Bay Area, and we'll feel a little bit of a cool down around Los Angeles and San Diego over the next couple of days as well. So perhaps a little bit of relief for those that have been sweltering in the central counties. Temperatures will be in the upper 70s at the coast over the next few days. That's the typical warmth. Beautiful in the afternoon, a little chilly in the morning. morning with the mist and the clouds around. Temperatures will start off in the lower 60s. And again, we'll see that sunshine, especially after lunchtime. Farther inland, about 5 degrees, 10 degrees warmer in most places. Here, too, starting off with some clouds, especially Thursday and Friday. That marine layer not quite as strong this weekend into next week, so days should still be filled with plenty of sunshine. Overnight lows will be in the 60s. Into the mountains, temperatures will be in the lower 80s over the next few days. It's been beautiful lately. The sunshine keeping it nice and bright, making it feel a bit warmer, of course, during the overnight hours. So you want to keep that in mind. Remember the sunscreen if you're going to be out and about the next couple of days. Into the deserts, it's typical heat. Again, it's definitely warm. Temperatures about 105 Thursday and Friday. We'll reach 103 Saturday, Sunday, and Monday as well. Each day should be filled with lots of sunshine because, again, those monsoonal thunderstorms are expected to stay much farther off to the east this time around. Of course, the story is we could definitely use the rain here, but for the time being, the area of high pressure bringing in those monsoonal rains is going to stay a little bit too far off to the east. So while the coast stays nice and cool, the deserts will continue to bake in that usual sunshine. Heather Waldman, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. On the next News Hour, Miles O'Brien dives in to discover what's behind a recent boom in jellyfish. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
More than 12,000 American military personnel have died since the Iraq War ended in 2003. A nonprofit called Tragedy Assistance Program for Survivors, or TAPS, works with the families left behind. It holds camp for kids who've lost parents in the military. KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser visited one of them in Julian and brings us the story.
I really think you can.
I think I can.
I think you can.
I think I can.
I think you can. I know you can.
I can.
I know you can.
Elliot Kim is 8 years old and is at sleepaway camp for the first time. He's with his parents' friend Ty Baryan and is looking forward to trying a climbing wall.
I've climbed one that's way taller than that. It's like twice the size.
Yeah? You want to look higher? Yeah, that one looks pretty good though.
Can you make it stop? Like drop it halfway and stop
Later,
it?
they play a game with Elliot's name tag. Baryan drops it and Elliot tries to catch it.
You ready? Concentrating. 1, 2, 3. Oh, okay, one hand. Do one hand, one hand, one hand, one hand.
On that name tag is a picture of Elliot's father, Scott Kim. He was in the Coast Guard and drowned 2 years ago. Baryan says Elliot wanted to be just like his dad.
I don't want to fill the void of Scott because that's not my job. I could never do what Scott had done for his family, but at least help create those memories for Elliot when he grows up.
And that's one of the goals of Good Grief campouts. They're part learning coping skills and part just having fun.
To ensure that the kids understand that what happened in their life with regard to their parent or loved one is an event in their life, but it is not a defining moment in their life, and that it is something that they can be aware about, but they don't have to dwell on it. They don't have to let it be the only thing that people address them with.
It makes me feel like I'm part of the community more, because not many people in my school have lost their dads or moms.
Elliot and all the campers get a mentor who's also in the military. For Elliot, that's Baryan, an active duty Marine.
We're really close friends and we all love each other.
Yes, we do.
That's why he gives me piggyback rides.
That afternoon, 12-year-old Athena Gonzalez hit the climbing wall. She was a bit nervous, but tackled it with coaching from her mentor. She's been to several Good Grief campouts after her father died while fighting in Afghanistan 5 years ago. She says they connect kids who understand each other.
I feel like it helps them remember the life and the love they had with that person and celebrate it more than just being more depressed over it.
Don't put anything else on it?
They do crafts to remember their parents or have group discussions. Some questions are easier, such as what was her father's favorite color? Others are harder.
The hardest question, I feel like it's still a hard question to this day, is how I learned he died. So that's hard for me to say, but in the end it feels good to be able to tell other people.
About 40 kids were at the 3-day TAPS camp. They hiked, made crafts, and swam in the pool. Ashlyn Haycock was a camper for 8 years and now works for TAPS. When she was growing up, she didn't know anyone who'd lost a parent.
Everything that TAPS did really normalized what I was going through. It made me feel like it was okay that I missed my father still, that even 5, 6 years out, that I still cried and that I still dreaded the anniversary of his death and his birthdays were still hard. And to know that other kids were going through that too made it so much easier.
And those camp friends then supported her during the year. Haycock says she loves seeing new campers start having fun.
It's okay for them to not want to cry. It's okay for them to have fun. It's okay for them to enjoy this time together. It doesn't have to all be tears and circle time and depressing, which is what so many people think grief camp is.
In the pool, Elliot and Baryan invented another game, using pool noodles like baseball bats to hit tennis balls. They splashed and laughed and got other kids to play too. Claire Tregesser, KPBS News.
Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On Midday Edition, we will talk to Second City Improv actors trying to find humor in the contentious presidential election. They will be performing their latest material at the La Jolla Playhouse this month. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.